The assassin.
You know I break necks, call me Jack Tate. I have no regrets while your life is fading. I'm a crazy fuck equivalent to Satan. When I'm behind the mic, I feel like the greatest. You know I break necks, call me Jack Tate. I have no regrets while your life is fading. I'm a crazy fuck equivalent to Satan. When I'm behind the mic, I feel like the greatest.
What up, y'all? You're listening to Sports Talk with Tropp, and I'm your host, Katie Tropp. Well, Jets fans, Monday Night Football had you running the gamut of your emotions, I am sure. Of course, everybody knows what happened by now. It was Monday Night Football, New York Jets versus the Buffalo Bills, and Aaron Rodgers' debut as the New York Jets quarterback, and didn't start off well at all. The first drive, drops back to pass on first down, gets sacked, then drops back to pass on second down, is running around. Then on third down, gets sacked, and then he can't get back up. And then, it looked bad because, obviously he gets up and then sits back down, and who does that unless you're injured? And then when you see him walking off the field, you're like, oh shit, is this for real? And turns out it was for real. And Aaron Rodgers on the third snap, he tore his Achilles and is now officially done for the season. So Jets pretty much at that point in the game were pretty much down and out, thinking their season's over, which, yeah, your season is over now that Aaron Rodgers is done for the season. But they were probably not thinking they were going to win that game at all. But thanks to the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, he actually ended up giving them 4 turnovers on the night and absolutely kept the Jets in it. And yeah, he had 3 interceptions, a fumble. They were all in critical points of the game. The interceptions were just absolutely atrocious. The fumble was terrible too, but the interceptions, they were like in triple coverage. He just had no business throwing those interceptions, and he most certainly did. And what did he do? He kept the Jets in it. It was a low-scoring affair the entire game. The Bills pretty much had the lead for the majority of the time until the fourth quarter. And then all of a sudden, the Jets got this little bit of life in the fourth quarter. They scored a touchdown, ended up tying it up, and then they actually ended up taking the lead, 16-13. The Bills were able to drive it down the field, tie it up at 16, and they would end up going into overtime. And the Bills would ultimately they would win the coin toss, get the ball to start on offense, and would just lay a complete egg. Punt the ball to Xavier Gipson, who ends up returning the punt for a touchdown for a walk-off win for the Jets, 22-16. So that's what I mean when they ran the gamut of emotions. They went from the ultimate low to the ultimate high. So it had to have been a very bittersweet win for the Jets players and the Jets fans. But obviously the big news, of course, was Aaron Rodgers. But Josh Allen, no lie, that dude, he's got to do something about those turnovers because last year he led the league in interceptions, and so far he now leads the league in interceptions, and he threw all 3 interceptions to the same exact guy. So he's really got to get it going because the Bills have high hopes this year, and they aren't going to get many wins if he just keeps throwing interceptions and not taking the care of the ball. So he really has to do that, and he knows he's got to do that. But, so far there's been no results, and, it's only week 1, but that was a big red flag, and it was the only reason why the Jets were able to sneak out that win on Monday night. So with that being said, since we have week 1 in the books, let's go ahead and do the week 1 Tropp 10 NFL power rankings. And number one. I don't know how much I'm going to get to do this season. And, there's actual evidence that I can present to you as to why I put them at number 1. But I know you all think I'm putting them at number 1 because I'm a total fan. And guess what? That is why I'm doing it. Number 1, Dallas Cowboys. They played a perfect game this week. They had more TDs than anybody in the league this week with 5. They had more turnovers this week than anybody, with 2 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, and a touchdown. They also had 7 sacks. They had a blocked kick that was ran back for a touchdown, and it was just a completely balanced game from the Cowboys, offensively, defensively, and special teams. They completely dominated the game from start to finish in every way, shape, and form. And yes, I know everybody's on the 49ers train, but I'm going Cowboys because it's my list, and they actually statistically did better than the 49ers. So I put them at number 1 because, like I said, I don't know how often I'm going to be able to do that this season because it is only week 1. You never know what's going to happen, but I got the Dallas Cowboys at number 1. Now, right behind them at number 2, I have the San Francisco 49ers, of course, because they also played a perfect game. I mean, really, they allowed the Steelers to score some points. The Cowboys did not do that, so that's where the Cowboys beat them this week. Like I said, the Cowboys had 5 total touchdowns this week. The Niners, I think, only had 3. And the Cowboys had 7 sacks. The Niners had 5. So you see what I'm saying? It's just like the Cowboys were better statistically. So guess what? There are reasons why I put them above them. But you can also make arguments for the Niners because they also played a completely balanced, perfect game as well, offensively, defensively, on special teams. Christian McCaffrey came right out the gate with 152 yards and a touchdown. And then Brock Purdy showed he is the dude. He had a great game. I mean, it wasn't perfect, of course, but I mean, the guy has a cannon of an arm. He can get it. He delivers the ball. You could tell that the team really believes in him. And they're just a well-coached, well-balanced team. So, of course, I had to put the 49ers in there as well. But I had to make all the arguments for my Cowboys because, like I said, who knows how long it's going to last, hopefully all season. But they played a perfect game, more perfecter than the 49ers. Then at number 3 on my top 10 NFL power rankings, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. They did have a mediocre game. They definitely were able to get a few takeaways that set them up for some easy scores. But that was the only time they really scored, was when they got the easy takeaways with the defense. And as I said earlier, prior to the season starting, I felt like the question mark with the Eagles was going to be their defense. So they really did step it up just because they are older. But we'll see. They definitely were the reason why they got the win this week. The offense was very, very vanilla. It really... It just didn't look as explosive as it did last year, but I mean, it's just week 1, which is why I didn't really drop the Eagles far in any type of power rankings because they were on the road playing. I mean, the Patriots look like a pretty awful team, but they still made it a good game until the end, and so I just felt like the Eagles couldn't be dropped completely out of the top 10, but they definitely. Because you got to take into consideration last year as well. It's only week 1, so that also plays a part. But they still looked like a pretty damn good team. Then at number 4 in my top 10 NFL power rankings, I had the Miami Dolphins, who had just an amazing game offensively, especially Tua Tagovailoa came right out the gate. He had 466 yards through the air and 3 touchdowns. And Tyreek Hill, that guy just went off for 215 and 2 touchdowns. So offensively, they looked really solid. Defensively, there's still some questions. This is actually how they started last year. So, I mean, who knows if this is just how they get started and if they're able to maintain it throughout the entire season. But that is a great way to start against a good team on the road. And to put up 466 yards in your first game of the season just to kind of shut everybody up because, Tua was coming off of the concussion year last year where he got a couple of concussions, missed a lot of the season. And like I said, he started off last year pretty similar like this, putting up a lot of numbers and then gets knocked out. So we'll see if he's able to stay healthy throughout the season. But, that's a great way to shut up any doubters right off the bat. I mean, it does help having Tyreek Hill out there, but still, he delivered the ball with perfect precision on Sunday. Then at number 5 on my top 10 NFL power rankings, I have the Baltimore Ravens. Offensively, they didn't look that good. I mean, it's still week 1, so there's a lot of time to get things right. But I mean, they really didn't win this game because of their offense. They won it because of their defense. They had 5 sacks on the day, and they looked really good. Typical Baltimore Ravens defense. Offense, I don't really worry about them. Lamar Jackson still has to get used to OBJ, his new receiver, and then he's got his rookie receiver. What's his name? Zay Flowers, I believe is his name. He looks like he's going to help him out. And then also Andrews, their tight end, he missed the game as well. So I kind of feel like their offense is going to get going as the season rolls on. But defensively, the Ravens looked pretty damn good. Then at number 6 on my Tropp 10 NFL Power Rankings, the only team on the Power Rankings this week with a loss, the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, you really can't count them out just because they did have a bad game, and it was week 1. And I mean, the news of Travis Kelce not playing, it was just, completely shock to the system. They didn't really know it was going to happen, so they didn't really have any time to prepare for it. Then also their defensive tackle, the top defensive tackle, one of the top defensive tackles in the league, Chris Jones, he was holding out at the time. Luckily for them, they worked out a contract, will not be holding out the rest of the season. So he wasn't there, although I will say the Chiefs' defense looked pretty solid even without him, so getting him in the middle is really going to be helpful. But I do just think it was an overall bad game from the Chiefs, and they are the defending Super Bowl champions. So I couldn't completely not put them in the Tropp 10 because you still have to respect them. And until they go on a terrible losing streak or something like that, I can't really justify dropping them out. But they did have a bad game. It wasn't a terrible game, but they still made the Tropp 10 this week. Then at number 7 on my Tropp 10 NFL Power Rankings, the team that beat the Kansas City Chiefs, the Detroit Lions. The reason why they're behind the Chiefs for me is just because I don't really know if they're for real. That could have just been, the first game where they just looked really good, or that's going to be the theme of the season for the Lions. I will say that, last year I consistently said they were a team that played with heart. It's just they came out on the short end of the stick a lot of games last year. So we'll see if they're able to overcome, which they did in game 1. They were able to definitely overcome adversity against the Chiefs, get a win against the Super Bowl champs on the night that they dropped the banner. So, that was a big win for them. So they definitely proved that it looks like they are almost there, but it is just week 1. So the Lions are going to have to show me something the rest of the season, but they are still, they definitely made the Tropp 10 because they definitely play with heart. And they look like they have the potential to be a pretty decent team this year. Then at number 8 on my Tropp 10 NFL Power Rankings, the Los Angeles Rams. They came right out the gates and against the Seahawks, their division rival, and really just dominated them. Defensively, they had them running for their lives. Geno Smith really couldn't set his feet. Aaron Donald looked like he was fresh and ready to go. But also the Rams, for once, they're the kind of the theme for the Rams over the last couple of seasons has been fuck rookie picks. They don't really care about draft picks. They pretty much have been signing veterans and stacking the team that way. And last year is when it caught up with them. So this year they actually decided to spend some time on some draft picks, and it actually worked out for them, at least in this game, because they had a receiver, Nakua, come out of nowhere. He had a solid game, and they really need a receiver to come out of nowhere because Cooper Kupp's definitely going to be out at least for the first month of the season. And then they had a running back, Kyren Williams. He scored 2 touchdowns, and I feel like that's a huge thing for them because my thing with the Rams, even when they won the Super Bowl, is they haven't had a strong ground attack. And so who knows, maybe this Kyren Williams guy is going to give them an extra added weapon on offense and to take some pressure off of Matt Stafford, who actually had an excellent game as well. He passed for 334 yards in the first game of the season. So it was just a really overall good game from the Rams against the division opponent on the road. Then at number 9 on my Tropp 10 NFL Power Rankings at the Jacksonville Jaguars. They also played a very balanced game. They had their issues at certain points of the game. Trevor Lawrence, he had an overall really good game, passed for 241 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he did have an interception, and that was a problem for him last year, so he definitely has to work on it this year. But it's definitely going to help him out because he has Calvin Ridley, who's coming off of his suspension last year, who had an excellent first game. And then they also have Zay Jones as well. He's a really good receiver who put up some big numbers. But I kind of feel like the secret weapon this year for the Jaguars is going to be their defense. And their Josh Allen, not the quarterback Josh Allen of the Bills, but the defensive linebacker Josh Allen for the Jacksonville Jaguars actually had 3 sacks. So he had a big year last year, and it's looking like he's just building off of last year and take it off into 2023 because 3 sacks on your first game, that's a pretty big deal. So I liked what I saw from the Jaguars. And then rounding out my Tropp 10 NFL Power Rankings this week, I have the New Orleans Saints. It didn't really overly impress me, but I mean, as I've continued to say, it's week 1, so a lot of these teams, we're not going to really know what some of these teams are for at least the first month because, since most teams don't actually play their starters in the preseason, you don't really have guys warming up anymore. So kind of like the first month of football is always a crapshoot. Some teams are solid and ready to go. Like I think the 49ers, the Eagles, the Cowboys, these are teams that have the Chiefs that have had their core players. And so they don't really have to work out any kinks. But then you also have teams like the Lions or the Ravens or even the Dolphins as well, who have like new players and new things to get going. And they might even be teams that are shaky to start, but then get going as the season wears on. So I did round out the Tropp 10 with the Saints, though, just because, Derek Carr, it was his first game as a Saint, and he passed for 305 yards and a touchdown. So that's a pretty solid debut, if you ask me. But also, their defense had 3 interceptions on the day. And I've felt like even last year when the Saints weren't a really good team, they had one of the best defenses in the league. So their defense this year is going to be pretty happy because they finally have a good quarterback in Derek Carr. They're going to get Kamara back in a couple of weeks and then pair him up with Jamal Williams. And then you've got Olave out there at wide receiver. I feel like the Saints are going to be a pretty good team, and their defense should be pretty happy because they've finally have an offense that could score some points, even though they didn't score a lot of points this week. But hey, they still look like they're going to be a very solid team. All right, now moving on to the Thursday night football matchup for this week. This week begins the Thursday night football matchups on Amazon Prime. They started that last year and continues on into this year. So this week's matchup is going to be the Minnesota Vikings at the Philadelphia Eagles. Right now, the Eagles are a 7.5-point favorite, which I think is a huge favorite. Just because, yes, I know the Vikings lost last week, but the Eagles did not win in convincing fashion. As a matter of fact, the Eagles could have easily lost that game last week had they not had those 3 big turnovers in the first half that set them up in good field position. There's a good chance that the Patriots would have won that game over the Eagles. But anyway, so it's really shocking to me to see that the Eagles are a 7.5-point favorite. And it is only week 2. So I actually went with an upset in this matchup. And the reason why is because the Vikings are a weird team. They've always been a weird team. They've always been that team where last week they were at home. They should have easily beat the Buccaneers. I mean, this is the Buccaneers coming off of a season where they have no Tom Brady anymore. So you're thinking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are just going to be a wash of a team. They ain't going to do shit. And they ended up beating the Vikings at home. And then the Vikings will bounce back and they'll go to someplace like Philadelphia and get the win. And so that's actually what I think is going to happen because, like I said, with Philadelphia, they didn't really play a convincing game last week. And the Vikings offensively in the first half looked like they did last year, really fast, really solid. And so I do think the Vikings are going to be able to score some points. And I think the Eagles are just going to continue their struggles that they had last week offensively. I do think it's going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be any type of runaway, but I just think the Vikings are going to get the better of them in the crucial plays, and I have the Vikings winning in an upset, a close upset, 23-21. All right, and since the Wednesday shows are really just about the power rankings, I do throw in a discussion about college football since I don't talk college football a whole lot on here. But I do usually talk about the top 10 teams in the AP poll. So the rankings for this week, my Texas Longhorns have charged up the rankings. So let's get started. Number one still remains Georgia, who are 2-0. They've just been on a roll. This week they do play South Carolina, but I still could expect them to be on a roll. So I don't expect Georgia to be in any trouble just yet. Then at number two this week we have Michigan, also 2-0, playing great so far without Harbaugh. Then we've got number three is Florida State, who is looking really sharp right now. They play Boston College this week, and they're undefeated. I mean, man, they won last week, 66-13. Then at number four, hook 'em horns, motherfucker, the Texas Longhorns, 2-0, coming off of that big win against Alabama. They have Wyoming this weekend. Then at number five, we have USC, who is also undefeated, and they are playing well. They play at Arizona State this weekend. Then number six, the Ohio State Buckeyes. They are undefeated as well. Then at number seven, Penn State, who are also undefeated and just scoring everybody out of the building. They are at Illinois this week. Then at number eight, we have Washington, undefeated, and they are scoring everybody out of the building. They play Michigan State this weekend. Then at number nine, Notre Dame, who's also undefeated and just playing really, really well this season. They are at number nine. And they're 3-0 just because they played week 0, if you will. And so did USC, who's also 3-0. So both of them are undefeated, but they have more wins than everybody else. And then rounding out the AP top 10 in college football this week, Alabama taking a dive after that loss to the Texas Longhorns, but not that far of a dive. Just down 3 spots. But coming off of that big loss, they do have South Florida this weekend, so they should bounce back. But sorry about you, Alabama. But it's nice to see you take a tumble because of my motherfucking Longhorns. So that is the AP Top 10 this week. So enjoy Thursday night football. We'll see if I'm right about that upset. And I will talk to you guys on Friday.